us for the August 7th, 2018 Lexington County School District 1 Board of Trustees meeting. We're glad you've chosen to spend the night with us for a little bit this evening, and we hope it won't be a long meeting, so you'll be able to get out pretty quickly. You know that we're 14 days away from school starting. Lots of cleaning and maintenance on buildings, new parking lots, lots of conferences and learning for administrators and staff, and excitement today. A lot of students picked up schedules, and so the excitement out in the community is building. So with that, do I hear a motion to adjourn executive session and begin the general?
So moved.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Okay, begin the general session. Okay, thank you. Dr. Powers, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Pitts. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries. I want to call to order the general session and notify you that we are in compliance of the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act, and we also want to notify you that the district tapes this meeting for accuracy in preparing minutes. The district is in compliance with South Carolina Freedom of Information Act by notifying media of the date, time, and place of our meeting. And today we are glad to have with us Isabella Cuto, Lexington County reporter for the state. So we're glad to have her with us today. Before you, board members, you have an agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Powers. And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Discussion? We'll take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries. Next, our reports and action items from executive session. Do I hear a motion to approve 22 certified recommendations for the 2018-2019 academic year?
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the recommendation of Human Resources for the 22 certified positions for the 2018-2019 school year.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Smith. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Pitts. Discussion? Okay, we'll take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries. Okay. Do I now hear a motion regarding policy GBEA, staff ethics, conflict of interest? Do I have a motion about that? Conflict of interest, nepotism?
Oh, sorry, excuse me. Madam Chairperson, sorry. I move the board affirm that the sister-in-law of a newly reassigned Pillion Elementary School principal be authorized to temporarily remain at the site. This teacher has successfully spent the last 12 years serving the children of Pillion, and the superintendent believes it is in the district's best interest to permit her to remain there. I so move.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Ms. Backman. Do I have a second? Okay, thank you, Ms. Green. Is there any discussion?
So remind me in the Pillion, Dr. Little and team, in the Pillion district area where we have 4K programs?
So what makes this particular case unique is that there's only one 4K location in Pillion. Okay. So we had a 4K location at Forts Pond, and the normal process about this would be we would just transfer to the other school in the community. But because there's no locations any longer at Forts Pond, they're all under one roof at Pillion Elementary School. That's why we've asked to make that exception. But it is also our plans that the 4K will not be at Pillion Elementary School. That's not our long-term plan for 4K. And so I think the word temporarily is important there because it won't. It's not our intention to keep the 4K housed at Pillion Elementary.
In Fort Pond's at capacity, there's just no space.
Correct.
And those
Correct.
Kids are going to Pillion?
So there are Forts Pond kids that that go to Pillion Elementary for 4K.
So all of those classes will be at Pillion to start out with?
Right, this year. And then eventually we're moving all of those 4K classrooms off of Pillion Elementary School's campus.
And then the Forts Pond children transfer back when they go in their regular school cycle, correct?
They do not stay at Pillion Elementary School.
Okay. All right. Board, any questions? Okay. We'll take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries. Our next item is a contractual matter related to an access drive and maintenance and repair at Oak Grove Elementary School.
Madam Chair, I move that the board approve the recommendation of the administration and the architect engineer to issue a statement of award for the parking area maintenance and repairs project at Oak Grove Elementary School to the following firm: Asphalt Paving and Maintenance, 361 Bradley Drive, West Columbia, South Carolina, 29170, for a base bid of $57,800, for a total award of $57,800.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Powers. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Pitts. Discussion?
Mr. Salters, on that, Mr. Salters, on the Oak Grove contractual matter for paving, will we have that done prior to school starting, or what's the turnaround date on that?
Yes, ma'am. That is the current schedule, is to have that completed in time for school to start.
Okay. And just as an aside, the board was invited week before last, I think I get confused on my weeks, to the summer reading camp over at White Knoll Elementary, and I just want to commend you and your staff. Oh my, the paving that was done at White Knoll Elementary and at White Knoll Middle, and then the tile work that was done inside White Knoll Elementary where we removed that carpet. It just was such an uplift for that school, and the parking lot was just great. So please let your staff know we really appreciate them working so hard in the summer to make these things happen.
Okay. All right. Okay, we need to take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion carries. During executive session, the Board of Trustees received legal advice and had discussion regarding a student matter. No action is required as a result of that discussion and legal advice. Our next item is 7.0, which is citizens' participation. Does anyone need a card, or does anyone have one that they picked up from outside that they would like to speak to the board? Okay, all right. Hearing none, we'll go right past that part. Item 8.0, we'll go to Mr. Salters. This is, board, I'll just remind you, this is the third reading for the Facilities Study Committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. I bring to you tonight the third reading of our Facilities Study Committee report, and for the reason it is third reading, I'll try to be brief through some of the information that we've talked through before, and get to more of the meat of some of the changes that we would propose for consideration. But as in our other briefings, we started those with a look at our growth forecast and summary data that was provided to us by a consultant, Malone and McBroom, who spent a good bit of time working with the district over the fall and early spring, and really looking at a number of different factors, but primarily these that are on the board here: demographic trends and our enrollment trends, and our housing developments around in our communities. And based on the information that their study produced, we are going to see a large influx of students continue in our district. We're currently 6th in the state for size of school districts. I think just 2 years ago we were 8th, so we're really continuing to climb that ladder. And for the most part, we're going to see large population increases in our district specifically, but the overall county is also going to go up, to almost over 500,000 citizens in 2050, which is just a significant number from the 282 we're at now. And so what you're looking at here is a density map. The darker the color, the more dense the population. And so this is a projected change from 2020 to 2030. You can really see some areas around the 378 corridor going out towards the county line, and then also right around our central area of the district, the Deerfield Carolina Springs and Pleasant Hill areas, and of course up in the upper portion over here by Midway Elementary and Meadow Glen, the River Bluff area. Those areas are really going to continue to grow. But what's interesting is the areas around our more rural areas, Pillion here and then Gilbert here, are really starting to change color and becoming more densely populated as well. Looking at housing numbers, our census data shows a 6.5% increase from 2010 to 2016. You don't have to ride around very far to see that happening in our communities. There are new housing developments going up everywhere. And of course, that's continuing to occur. As I mentioned, primarily in these areas here, Deerfield, Pleasant Hill, Rocky Creek, Lake Murray, Carolina Springs, and Midway, we've seen significant permitting of our 3-bedroom and larger homes in those areas. And you can see that's just a density map of those permits. And of course, this particular one here is it's actually about an 800 home neighborhood, just down from White Knoll High School. So that gets you by default a red blob on the map there. Looking at our data, it's very key to know how many students are going to come with those new homes, and we have a factor that we've created that gives us basically a multiplier for every new home in each of our attendance areas. So the overall average for a new home breaks out to about 0.65 students per new home. And of course, that's higher in some of our areas. You can see Meadow Glen, Pleasant Hill, Midway, Carolina Springs, all in the 0.74 or higher. Actually, Meadow Glen is over one student per household. So that's a significant number of students for every home that we see coming in. And we're also seeing that number continue with our turnover homes. So this is a resale homes. And if you're a realtor, this is a pretty exciting chart for you, because that resale market has gone up 45% in the last recorded data from 14 to 16. So there's a lot of homes being resold in our communities as well. And the interesting thing there is the overall average students produced out of that is 0.41. But again, you can see in Meadow Glen and Pleasant Hill, Midway, those areas well above that average, looking at almost a 0.6 factor per household. So really useful information for us to be able to target and pinpoint where new students are going to be coming from. Taking a look at some county data, permitting data, these are what we would consider shovel-ready projects across the county. And there's about 5,100 of those sitting out there right now. And if you apply our multiplier to that number, that if these homes build out as they're projected, that's another 3,300 students right there over the next 7 years. And interestingly, you can see some numbers you would expect, 480 in Carolina Springs and 429 in Deerfield. But one that I found really interesting, if you look at the Gilbert area, there's 753 new homes in that area. So you can see we're really starting to kind of sprawl out a little bit and look at Pillion 368. So large number of homes going to continue to go up across the overall county and within our district. Again, another look at a density map showing that breakdown, and where those hot spots are. Our enrollment trends, this is no surprise to you guys as you study this information regularly, but you can see over the last 5 years we've continued to go upwards, running about 500 students a year, and now we're peaking over 26,000 when you put our 4K students in there as well. Looking at K-12 projections overall, if you fast forward, this was a 10-year look ahead, and our consultants told us that we really need to be looking on the high end of this. They did a kind of a low development line, a kind of a median development line, and then a high development line. And they told us that we need to be looking at the high end for sure, based on what they're seeing. And so, we're estimating upwards of 31,000 students over that period of time. So again, we're continuing to grow roughly 500 students a year on average. So, and that trend will continue for the foreseeable future. Breaking that down by K-5, again, you can see we're sitting here at, about 12,000 students, and we'll be over 13,000 during that time, reflecting, probably about a 12% increase in that period of time in K-5. And this is a density map of where those students are likely to present themselves. And interestingly, you'll see a number of those in the Pelion area. And then, of course, some of these are expected that you, if you ride around, you see. But a lot of growth, again, coming to our more rural areas over the next 10-year period. This is a very busy chart, but it breaks down each of our attendance areas. It actually combines Gilbert's enrollment, the primary school and the elementary school, into one look, since it is K-5, but it gives you an overall number going forward for what we're looking at, and highlights the need for additional capacity in these areas: Oak Grove, Meadow Glen, Midway, Pleasant Hill, Carolina Springs, which is really consistent with what we would expect.
So, Mr. Salt, just go back one. So, remind me, a portable will hold 25 to 30 students. So, again, just stick with Pleasant Hill. So, again, if we didn't do the bond and didn't build additional capacity in 10 years, that's whatever it is, 11, 12 more portables in theory on that campus, if it could hold it. So,
that's correct. And they already have, Pleasant Hill Elementary School currently has, I think it's 24 portables on the campus now. Right. So you're approaching more portable classrooms than permanent classrooms at that point.
And staying with that train of thought, Meadow Glen Elementary already is maxed out the space for portables.
Correct.
So if we had to add portables there, they'd go on the where?
Potentially, you could put them on the little soccer playground field in the back, and then you would not have a space for PE. Looking at 6th through 8 enrollment projections, again, pretty consistent with what you would expect. These actually get a little more accurate as you get up in the upper grade levels, because these are students that we already know about. They're already in our system, and we can more accurately project them out. Kindergarten is always a variable that's hard to project. So again, seeing an overall, say, 18% increase over that 10-year period of time. Again, no surprise as to where those students are going. Mostly concentrated in the Lexington and River Bluff attendance areas. And here are your projections again. And again, Carolina Springs, Pleasant Hill, Meadow Glen, our capacity needs for that period of time. So it's consistent with what we would expect. Looking through 9 through 12 enrollment, once again, large number of students seen here, and you notice that we really have a bubble come up through high school. There's a big increase, 26% almost projected there. So you're really going to see an increase at that high school level over that 10-year period. And again, right in this area, the Lexington, River Bluff, White Knoll areas will see the most growth of that high school cohort coming through. And then, again, it's consistent with the recommendations, additional capacity needed over that 10-year period for those areas. Fortunately, for the near future, the first, really the next 5 years, at Lexington and River Bluff, where we feel like we have adequate capacity, and some, towards the end of that period of time, we may have to add some portables. But certainly at White Knoll, we are already in portable classrooms now, and so we're going to continue to need capacity there. So you'll see some recommendations for that here in a few minutes. So in summary, again, continued housing activity in our area really impacts our school system and what we're doing and how we need to plan. Elementary level, our Oak Grove Medical and Midway areas and Pleasant Hill, Carolina Springs are really the focus. And middle school level, Carolina Springs, Pleasant Hill, and Medical Inn. And then at the high school level, again, those 3 areas consistent with what we would expect. So that's kind of the why of what we're looking at. And so how do we manage all of that growth coming in? And of course, the first thing that we do, if you recall, the focus at the middle school level was that Lexington, Pleasant Hill attendance area. And so the board took action to start a new middle school in that area. And then also looking at a bond referendum for the November 6th ballot. And so specifically about the middle school, construction was started in the winter of 2017 with the opening date of August of 2019. It's located at 378 Beechwoods. And notice the initial capacity here is 1,200 and a core facility of 1,500. That's in direct response to community feedback and board input. If you recall, Meta Glen Middle School was opened with a initial capacity of 800 students and a core of 1,000. So we're looking at building larger campuses to better accommodate that growth going forward. But in our design of those facilities, we design smaller house concepts or areas where students circulate among smaller spaces so that they feel like they're in a smaller school. So design is really important as part of that process to
Yeah, I wanted to reiterate that. I think philosophically, I struggle with the idea of large schools and kids being lost in large schools. You think about, we don't want our children to be a number. We want them to be an individual kid and make sure we know what their strengths and weaknesses are, and make sure that every child that comes through the Lexington One system is known and is championed by an adult. And so we're going to work really hard with our architects and those folks to help design that the schools feel small regardless of what the core capacities are. But in order to keep up with the growth, we're stuck a little bit because we can build the 800-person middle school, which is really ideal. I'm looking at Mr. Poole back here. I mean, that's an ideal size for a middle school. But then all the kids are going to be in portables. So why not go ahead and make it bigger and make sure they're in the building, and make sure that the cafeteria, the cafeteria can handle that, and the media center and those places that are so critical for the core facility. So I just wanted to. Every time we bring this up, I'm going to reiterate that in these meetings, because we really want to make sure that our children are known and they have champions. And so we're going to try to do the best we can to make the architecture and the design of these buildings feel really small, feel intimate, so that people, when children come to school, that they're known and can move around in smaller groups.
I think from a security standpoint too, when you have so many portables, it's just another layer of security that we have to add on. Not that we mind doing it, but when you have a brick and mortar building, it's much easier to secure it and lock it down and all the good things that we need to do.
Yeah, very good points. This is a rendering of the school, and again, this is a prototype plan, so this plan would be replicated for future middle schools. We'll tell you, you saw the August 2019 opening date, and we are on schedule out at the job site. I will say that we've had 16 inches of rain in the last 2 weeks on that campus. So that has made for an interesting construction schedule, but the folks are doing a really good job keeping up out there. So, but again, this would be replicated for future middle schools as we go forward. Talking about our facility study, want to highlight that we had over 100-member community committee that came together and attended 4 meetings, actually about 115 members. All of our schools were represented at these meetings. We focused on a number of topics, obviously growth, and then looking at our facility needs talking about our future-ready classroom concept and future technologies that the district needs, and then spend a lot of time receiving community input and feedback. And that group developed developed consensus around a 5-year plan after attending these meetings and seeing these presentations. And a few highlights of the plan. First is a relocation of Gilbert Elementary School, Pillion Middle School, and Lexington Middle School. These are our 3 oldest campuses, and they're very difficult sites to expand and increase capacity on those sites and do renovations due to the new code requirements that we follow, whether it be county county stormwater requirements, or DHEC requirements, or office of school facility requirements, fire marshal, and so on. And so it has been looked at significantly, and it's more cost effective, we believe, to relocate these sites and increase capacity at these locations as we move them. So we would take, for example, a Lexington Middle School that would comfortably hold 800 students, and create a middle school campus that could hold 1,500 students at the same time. So, and the same holds true with each of the other campuses. And then we're looking to repurpose the existing facilities at Pillion Middle School. I think there was a conversation earlier about 4K. We would be excited to repurpose that building and to become a 4K center in the Pillion community. The same with the Gilbert Elementary School site. Gilbert Elementary School would offer some other opportunities as well to potentially partner with the town of Gilbert and some other folks to make use of some spaces there. The key for us in those all these repurpose ideas is to preserve the integrity of these buildings, so that in the history and legacy of education in these campuses, because that means a lot to us and our community as well. So they will continue to serve students in our district when they're repurposed.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but all 3 of those schools were the original high schools, correct? So a lot of people walked across in their cap and gown and got their diplomas at those schools. It's just that, give us the age. Gilbert, I think, is 75 years old.
Gilbert and Pillion, early mid-50s
built
time
in
frame.
50s.
So they're, we would hope for a 75-year to a 100-year process for any kind of building that we would build, and that's that's kind of where we are.
I think the other thing, when you go out to those schools today, they were just built on that totally different model of the small buildings, and then you walked in between, and just some of the buildings, it's just they've just outgrown their usefulness for us, and it's hard.
Right. And so additionally, we would have 2 new elementary schools. One would be in the White Knoll attendance area. If you remember back earlier in the presentation, that red dot there with the 800 homes, that's basically a school by itself. And then the town of Lexington area would also need to serve another elementary school. Additional highlights we would have, I mentioned earlier about portables at White Knoll High School. We would have a large classroom addition at that campus, along with a Performing Arts Center there, and Performing Arts Center at Gilbert and Pillion. I'm sorry, not at Pillion, but Gilbert High School. Pillion, Lexington, and River Bluff currently have Performing Arts Centers available to them. So we would look at security improvements across all of our schools. Of course, this is an ongoing conversation and an important piece of our referendum and facility study.
And Mr. Salters,
Yes.
we, as a board, that is the one thing I think we all agree on. We hear about that more than anything. And I know the facts point to the need to continuously improve security. So I think that's a good thing that you pointed that out.
We have a number of renovations and building system upgrades. Just like at your home, we have HVAC units, roofs, hot water heaters, things like that have to be replaced. And so we have a number of those things in. And then our future-ready classrooms and technology for every school. We're very excited about this idea. Many of our schools, were opened in the early 80s, some of them late 70s, and the furniture that they were opened with is still the furniture that's being used. And so, yes, ma'am.
I was just going to say that just teaching process is different now. The practice is different. And so getting updated furniture that can be moved and created to work more closely in groups with others, that, students to be able to do that is really key.
Right. Many of us sat in rows and aisles, and you won't see that in our models. It's more collaborative groups, as you mentioned, and different orientations where a teacher can be teaching from different spaces in the room and working in groups. We have basically a kindergarten through 2 model, a 3 through 5 model, 6 through 8 model, and then a 9 through 12 model. And we've actually taken this concept out to all of our schools and put one of these classrooms in each school, and as a prototype, and we're getting feedback this fall on that concept and what these models will do and how well they work. And so maybe some tweaks to some different elements in each classroom, but very excited about being able to bring this to each school in the district.
Well, I'd like to echo what Ms. Knight said, because, to me, the teacher standing at the front of the room, rows and rows of wooden desks facing the same way, is boring. And this doesn't look boring. I mean, this is interactive with the teacher moving around the room and the students moving around to work with each other. It's pretty exciting to see it about to happen all across the district. Right.
It's very active, and I would say that if you walk in our classrooms now, many of them are functioning this way despite what's going on, the furniture that's in the way in the classrooms, and so this will help with that
and
that's
process.
Very,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but when we've done a couple of our school tours, our teachers have been incredibly innovative and creative in using the furniture that they have to make it flexible and have a lot of variety, from removing the bottoms of the legs and making the tables lower, and bringing in their own equipment to make different seating. So the fact that we're going to be able to assist them in making these interactive classrooms is pretty exciting.
And I think things like I don't know, you have to help me with the pronunciation, the undulating tables, and then the tables with the wheels, and the way everything is purposely designed so that it can be moved and locked into place and switched, and that's what that means when you have tables that they can all shift and be locked in together in different patterns. Is that what we're striving for?
Right, and it also, obviously teachers have different styles of teaching, and it will allow for different flexibility. So some may want, in some cases you may want rows if you're doing some kind of assessment or something like that, but then you can quickly move around and get into groups.
So, and think about, if I could add a little complexity to it as well, think about the use of technology in a classroom. So let's just keep our eye on this one here. So you see the media share table in the front. So picture, if you will, a teacher there with a small group of kids providing small group instruction with the teacher, while at the other 3 tables, perhaps those kids are involved in some type of research or wherever they are. And then you may have down here at the other table, you may have that group of kids working on a specific project that's coming from somewhere else, or perhaps they've already mastered the material, and there's an opportunity for that group to enrich the material of that table. So it provides the teacher with a lot of options to move around those students, to group them differently, and in a blended learning model, which is what a lot of our schools are working on and moving towards, and incorporating technology as a critical instructional device, this becomes almost mandatory to make it happen. And flexibility, Ms. Green used the word flexibility. That is really the key here. So while we're given a model for what it could look like, the truth of the matter is that there are lots of options that the teacher could utilize depending on what he or she is trying to accomplish for that given day. And it could look very different. We do give tests, it's every now and then in school. And so you need the opportunity to line them up and to give a test. Sometimes we do that. I know it sounds crazy, but sometimes we do that. But we also encourage, our new vision statement says, empower each child to design the future. Well, these are the types of classrooms that allow that to take place.
Well, and this just as a reminder for me and everybody else, that our buildings and the furniture and the materials and the technology are all supposed to support the instruction and what the teacher is doing with the students. we don't want our buildings and our furniture and our technology to constrain what the teacher feels is the right thing to do. And so
Correct.
I think we're moving in the right direction.
Well, I think the other thing that's so important, we hear from Nephron, Michelin, Boeing, that when there are problems in production, when they have issues they're trying to solve, they want their employees to work together in a project-based sense to come up with reasonable solutions. And I think this is preparing students to be employees. So I think that's as important as anything we do too.
Very good points. If I could now, I'd like to highlight some changes that we're looking at for third reading. You know, you guys directed us to try to really focus on the impact of an overall referendum package and how to reduce that impact while maintaining the integrity of a facilities program that we have presented to this point. You heard feedback from community members and the Chamber of Commerce and specifically about the burden that Act 388 places on businesses. If you recall that homeowners don't pay any tax for school operations due to Act 388, so businesses bear the brunt of all of that. Now, with a referendum, that tax burden would be shared across all taxpayers. But we've gone back and looked at this very carefully, and we're prepared tonight for third reading to recommend as part of this study a new number of $365 million, down from the $393 that was in the original proposal. You can see we have the $210 million in new schools. We've lowered this addition number slightly. Renovations in building systems, it's gone down slightly. We've reduced furniture and technology. Basically what we've done is we've taken three approaches. One is to look at projects that were at the tail end of our referendum, say year 5, that we could push out a couple of years based on adjusting maintenance schedules. For example, we may have had a roof that was 20 plus years old, which typically is called for to be replaced in the 20 to 25 year window, and so we might push that out just a little bit, and so we removed some things like that. We've also looked at our ongoing operational maintenance ideas, or things that we do there, and how we could reduce that number slightly, and then we're looking at some projects that we were able to go ahead and do. Once the facilities study needs were identified back in the spring, we started identifying ways that we could fund some of those projects. And you guys have been very busy this summer. You mentioned some of these projects earlier, parking lots and tile work in classrooms and hallways and so forth. We've identified a number of those projects and been able to go ahead and get those done this summer with existing funding. So we've taken that number down to $365 million. We feel very good about that and what's included and where we are. And so again, looking at the breakdown by attendance area, and again, this is for the whole attendance area. So this will be the whole, and it's based on the high school attendance area. So all the Gilbert attendance area, which remember is 4 schools, and Pillion's also 4 schools. So keep that in mind. And then Lexington would be all the schools that feed Lexington High School. The River Bluff would be all the schools that feed River Bluff High School, and so forth with White Knoll. So it's pretty even breakdown across the district. Every school in this facility study gets some funding. All schools and all classrooms would be equipped with the future-ready classroom technology and furniture, so we're excited about that. Talking about funding the package, take you back to 2008, which is the last time we did a referendum in our community, and it was for $336 million. We built 5 schools in the Lexington area. We built 2 elementaries, a middle and a high, and then one new elementary in the White Knoll area. We did renovations at 15 locations across the district, and then we did technology and security upgrades across the district as well at that time. When we did that referendum, the millage for debt service was 73.3 mils. We agreed at that time to not raise more than 12 mils. And after all the projects were completed in 2015, the debt service millage actually went down by 2 mills. So we borrowed $336 million, and we're able to decrease the millage during that time. So that was a very good benefit for taxpayers. We had the benefit of a recession and a stimulus economy during that time. So there was a lot of good pricing, good numbers that came in on construction projects and so forth. So that was very beneficial for us during that time.
And again, the reason we're able to reduce mills, I think, is we refinanced some debt as interest rates fell. I mean, John, correct me if I'm wrong, as well as some of the debt was paid off. I mean, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And also, we were able to take advantage of some stimulus bonds that we were able to get financed for basically a 0% interest rate.
Gotcha.
So it saved us a lot on our debt service millage schedule by not having to pay that interest on those bonds. But yeah, there were several reasons that went into that. So we did do some refinance and that kind of thing.
And I'm just trying to set expectations. The likelihood of us getting 0% financing bonds for this referendum is?
About zero.
Okay. So, I mean, again, no one likes a recession, but when you're building, it's nice to have a recession.
Right. And there has been, I say about zero, there has been some talk about trying to do something with Q-scabs or maybe even BABs, but especially with the current administration, I don't know that I see that happening.
Right. I'm just trying to set expectations because
Right.
we got lucky to have a recession during a building project.
It was, you know, perfect storm in a good way, if you will.
Right. But I'm glad we're not in a recession anymore, for the record.
Just taking a look at the impact of reducing the package to 365. You can see in second reading we were at 19 mills, and now we were down to 14 mills. So we would not increase mills more than 14 mills, and it has a pretty good impact on our homeowner. It's going from $75 in second reading down to $56, which I think is $4.76 a month. If you do that math, so on $100,000 worth of assessed value. So, and then on a business, that impact goes down from $114 to $84, which I think is $7 a month on $100,000 worth of assessed value for businesses.
And you're talking about over the course of a year.
1 year.
Yes,
One year.
that's correct.
We're talking about $4.67 a month.
76 cents, yeah, a month. That's right. That's right. So that $56 would be split over a 1 year period for $100,000 home.
I actually
John's
think
checking
Ms.
my
Smith
math
is
over
right. I think it's
67.
467. Yeah,
467. Okay. $4.67 a month, and then the $7 on the business, and that millage would be applied over the 5-year period of the plan, and the bonds basically are sold as projects are started. So you wouldn't see all that millage hit year one. It would incrementally start as projects were started, and then approximately half of the it's just kind of a reminder, but approximately half of the debt service millage that we levy is offset by the penny sales tax in Lexington County. So actually, of that 56, I'm sorry, that includes that, doesn't it, John? The half is already, that 56 is included. So the debt service millage is already offset.
And that was just reauthorized for how long?
7 years.
7 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the 56 is being in addition.
Yeah.
The credits are in place.
Yeah, the credit's in place. So, again, $365 million, 14 mills, $56 per 100,000 on a homeowner, and $84 per 100,000 on a business. And with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions. And
So also just trying to set expectations. So we had a discussion about what the bond package was set at, and we'd come back with a reduced amount. The risk to us as a district is some of that maintenance, which was baked into that, because I heard that's where our savings was.
some of it, yes.
May not get done. So just talk through that, the risk to us in reducing the bond package in that space.
Well, I think as we mentioned earlier, we really worked hard to preserve the overall integrity of the package, and so we feel like if there are, say, a roof that's at 22 years, if you wait 1 more year, 2 more years, you're not going to see a significant risk by doing that. So we didn't pick projects that were very risky, if you will, to kind of push further out. I mean, I think that's what we were looking for, to try to minimize that. We definitely don't want to be exposed in any way to any major risk like that. I mean, of course, if a major hurricane comes through and does a lot of damage, then we can have a different conversation.
And then construction costs are dynamic right now. So, I've been hearing of 200+ square footage cost, for commercial buildings. So what are you hearing in the market now, and do you have any benchmarks, even over the past year or two?
Dynamic is a great word. We are, as I'm aware, we are the lowest construction cost currently in an active project. We're at about $175 a square foot for the building at the new middle school site. Recent bids in the Berkeley County, Charleston area, I've been hearing are in the $230 to $240 a square foot. We got some information from the upstate. I believe it was York County. It was over $300 a square foot. Now, a number that high, I believe, would include some other site work or maybe some land incorporated into that number.
Having such tremendous labor issues in the Charlotte and the Charleston market because they're competing for construction workers with all of the building of the office buildings
Right.
and the homes, and they just can't find enough brick masons and welders and electricians.
Right. And we're experiencing that too, and that's what our I mean, we were at $144 at River Bluff, and so that's what you see, that increase go up over time. I mean, there's just a lot of work in South Carolina right now, and that's probably not going to change. And what happened in 07, 08 when that market crashed, a lot of these businesses went under and didn't come back out, and so we have limited resources. And then you also have the fact that not many of our students graduate or go into these trade fields, and so the work pool is getting smaller, unfortunately.
Well, I just want to say that I'm just so thankful that you all worked so diligently on this, because all of us on this board heard from community people that just were concerned about the tax impact, and especially with 388 on businesses. And I, for one, feel really good with this number and the millage drop from 19 to 14. I think it's going to, that the community is going to be very accepting of the changes.
But I do still think as a community, we need to continue to wrestle with how is the public school funding model sustainable in our current environment, because there's a lot of cross subsidies and cost shifts, which for growing districts is not sustainable. So again, I know all of us as a board are talking to our delegation. I'd encourage everyone in the community to do the same. But again, for fast-growing districts, we're on a tough trajectory.
Well, that's the exact thought that I had in the growth maps, the little hot spot over there in Carolina Springs and 800 houses. And each one of those houses really doesn't provide us any money for schools, but yet we're going to have to build a school to serve those families that are moving in. And so the formula just doesn't, it harms us.
And so the mechanics are, we hope businesses come with them, and then we tax them to pay for, it's just, it's inefficient taxing is the bottom line.
And in front of every one of these brand new neighborhoods is a huge sign that tells which schools that neighborhood feeds into, and that you will be so glad that you're in Lexington 1.
And they should be glad.
Yeah, they.
All right, with that, board members, you've heard the Facilities Study Committee report. Do I have a motion to approve the report as presented?
Yes, Madam Chair, I move that the Board of Trustees approve the Facilities Study Committee report as presented.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Pitts. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Any discussion?
I'd just like to restate some key facts that jumped out at me after all these presentations. We have 5,100 new homes currently being built. That's not projected. Those are already coming up from the ground. We have 3,300 students in the pipeline in the next 7 years. They're not imaginary. They're here. We've been adding 500 students a year last year. We're going to add 500 this year. We currently have 26,000 bodies walking through our schools, and the wear and tear on all of our buildings when you have 26,000 students, plus the 3,400 employees. We have almost 30,000 bodies utilizing our buildings on a daily basis. I mean, it's just like your home. It just needs upkeep and wear and tear, the things taken care of. We currently have 170 portables, even after building all of the buildings that we've built. And our security needs are exponential. I mean, we are doing so much for security, but we can always do more. So I just want to throw those facts out, that we're not just pie in the sky putting this forth based on we want this. We're putting it out because the facts speak for themselves.
Thank you, Ms. Smith.
And add to that, the unfunded mandates that we get handed down from the state every year. You
Sure.
know, so, well, it was 15 million. What did it end up being, Mr. Butler?
For the current year, for the base student cost, it was about 15 million. And then if you go to look at Act 388, and the funding we're not getting on owner-occupied property versus what we're getting from the state, that's about another 38 million. So it's over $50 million in 1 year that we're not getting from the state.
Wow.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, we'll now take a vote. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and the motion carries. Item 8.2 is a resolution calling for a bond referendum in the school district to be held on November 6, 2018. And we'll go to Mr. Butler.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Little. This is a resolution calling for a bond referendum in the school district to fund the 5-year building plan that Mr. Salters just gave us the third reading for and that y'all just approved. It's in the amount of $365 million, and the administration is recommending the board approve the resolution.
Okay.
I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Okay. All right. Board members, you've heard the presentation regarding resolutions calling for a bond referendum. Do I hear a motion regarding this resolution?
Madam Chair, I make a motion for the board to order a referendum in Lexington County School District 1 to submit the question of whether the school district shall be authorized to issue not exceeding $365 million aggregate principal amount general obligation bonds, providing for the publication of notice of the referendum and other things related thereto.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Pitts. Any discussion?
I'd like to point out, based on the numbers that Mr. Salters has shared with us tonight, that's the equivalent of about a cheeseburger basket from Rush's. So I think we can all do, and in high school speak, it's about 1.5 coffees from Starbucks. So I think that's a good number you came up with, Mr. Salters and Mr. Butler. Thank you.
But that's a cheeseburger a month, which I would not advise.
Oh, now, Dr. Powers, take that hat off.
Okay. Okay. Any other discussion, comments? Okay. We will now take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries. Item 8.3 we'll go to Dr. Talley to talk about local board approved courses for the coming year.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have two routine brief items for you this evening. The first, every year I bring to you a listing of locally approved courses that need your approval that do not appear in the State Department Education Activity Coding for courses. This year, I have highlighted those in red ink in your packets. So there are a few courses we're seeking for you to approve tonight.
Okay. Board members, like she said, this was in your packet. Do I have a motion to approve, the recommendation to approve the courses presented?
Okay. I move that the board approve the recommendations from Dr. Talley of the local board approved courses for high school and middle school 2018-2019.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Smith. Do I have a second? Okay, thank you, Dr. Pitts. Okay, discussion or questions?
So,
go ahead.
no, you're fine. Go ahead, Mike.
Dr. Talley, is the ones in red are the ones that we're concerned about? I
The
was
ones
looking
in-
through those.
The ones in red, for example, on your first page, you'll see where we've marked in red Steel Drums 2 at River Bluff High School. We currently have Steel Drums 1. It's been a very popular course at that school. And that is already on the system coding for the State Department. Steel Drums 2 is not.
Okay.
Okay.
So I just want to thank you. We spend a lot of times talking about buildings and capacity, but not talking about instruction. And I mean, we talk about instruction, but it's exciting, the class offerings we offer our students. It's part of, obviously the secret sauce that makes Lexington one great. And just wanted to thank you, Dr. Talley.
I appreciate that. I will say buildings are important, and Mr. Salters and his team and the instructional team, we work hand in hand. It's a collaborative effort.
And it's exciting that your teachers want to step up and teach these new courses, because some of them they're pretty interesting, so.
Okay. All right, we'll take a vote now. All in favor of the recommendation to approve the courses that Dr. Talley presented?
Aye.
Any opposed? And so the motion carries. So they are approved. Item 8.4 are back to Dr. Talley. We're going to talk about travel requests.
Right, tonight I'm bringing to your attention 7 student travel requests. I've reviewed each one, and they're in compliance with our board policy, and I'm seeking your approval.
Okay, the board, these were in your packet. Do I hear a motion?
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the 7 student travel requests as presented by Dr. Talley.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Smith. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Pitts. Any discussion or questions? All right, we'll take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries. Item 9.0 is the superintendent's report. So Dr. Little, take it away.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I will be brief tonight. As you know, really the big news is that in just a couple of weeks, we welcome back over 26,000 young people, and we are thrilled to know that they are just around the corner. The people who know me and are getting to know me still at the district understand that I have a pet peeve when we count down to the end of school. That's really not my favorite thing, because I think it sends the wrong message to our community. I think it sends the wrong message to our children about how we value them. But one thing I do love to do is I love to count down to the start of school. For me, this is like Christmas time.
Parents like to do that too.
I know they do. I know they do. I've got, that's right. It is very exciting. I know my wife is excited to see August 21st roll around here and get everybody kind of moving in the same direction. But
I'm assuming that you will not be teaching Fortnite at any of our schools.
That's
this year.
correct.
That is
We are
excellent.
not going to do that. That's not. I don't believe that was on the locally approved list. We haven't quite done Fortnite yet. But it is an exciting time of year. This just the other day, in fact, just yesterday, we welcomed new teachers to Lexington 1. Not new to Lexington, but new teachers. And that moment was so exciting. It was so exciting to walk out there and be a part of their first day on the job. And when you think about, I told that group, I said, never let anybody call you just a teacher. Because as a teacher, you're a world changer, you're a dream maker, you're a hope builder. And that was just an awesome moment to be among those new teachers and to see the excitement, the trepidation, and anxiety, but also the anticipation of what's to come. I did also let them know that I met my wife at new teacher orientation, but no pressure. I wasn't, they don't have to meet their spouse at new teacher orientation, but that's where I met Julie, and so I always have a soft spot in my heart for new teacher orientation. We have some big events I wanted to make sure that the board is aware of. Next Monday, we welcome all of our new employees, so that's new to the profession, but it's also new to Lexington 1, so they may have been a school bus driver for 25 years, but they've decided to come and work for Lexington 1. We have those folks, and we also have the folks that are 22 years old and just straight out of college and ready to go. So that'll be next week, and I believe all these dates are on your agenda, but I just wanted to make sure you heard about that. Also, on August 15th, we have the largest gathering of Lexington 1 employees in the history of this school district. And it will be our attempt at convocation. And I ask for your patience when we're not 100% sure how all this is going to turn out, but we've been working really hard on it. But we're going to bring all nearly 4,000 of our employees in one place and just take a little bit to celebrate that. And we're thrilled about it. We're working on how to transport all those employees to one place and make sure we can get them there. But so there's been a lot of logistical challenges, but we hope that's going to be a good experience for our folks. And then finally, what I want to share with you, this week we finalized, if you'll recall last year, we rolled out, no pun intended, rolling study halls at Pillion Middle School. And so the idea there was we were going to put a tutor on each bus, along with equipment and Wi-Fi access so that we could take learning and not have those kids lose so much time when they could be doing their studies. And so, for example, some of those students ride a bus 90 minutes, an hour, 90 minutes. And if you add that up, morning and afternoon, they're actually going to school an extra day a week if you look at it, just time on the bus. And so the rolling study halls was made possible by partnership with Google. So when Google's driving the train a little bit, we're having to work and make that happen. I see Howard sitting out here. Howard's been absolutely critical on our rolling study hall work. That is going to be September the 10th, and we're going to do the ribbon cutting on September the 10th. Now, ignore the fact that we did it last year and that we're starting it this year before September the 10th. But that's when Google wants to make that happen, and I believe Molly Spearman's going to be there. We're inviting other dignitaries to be there. But we are thrilled about what the impact that the rolling study hall can have for some of our kids.
Google's providing all of the funding for that, right?
Everything but the bus.
And they've asked us, that we're a pilot group, correct?
We are. So we are one of the few school districts in the country that have done this. Really the one that I talked to was Caldwell County in Lenoir, North Carolina, if you know kind of that area of North Carolina. But we're one of the few school districts that have done this, and so they're being very specific about the rollout. And so anyway, that's September the 10th, but we'll probably take a bus ride. There may or may not be a bus ride. I can't neither confirm nor deny that, but I think they've got some special activities planned for us and planned for the kids. So it should be a very exciting day. And of course, when Google's involved, you're going to have a little bit of fun. That's kind of what their whole mission is. So anyway, I just wanted to share that. So lots of great things coming. I look forward to seeing everybody again on the 21st with our next board meeting. And school is right around the corner again, and we're just so excited to be a part of this, and looking forward to what I believe is going to be our next great school year. And I can't wait to share with you in the coming months some of our data. I told you last year that our data was looking really good. It's been embargoed. Dr. Talley's staring at me right now because she's terrified that I'm getting ready to start talking about our improved graduation rate, among other things. Look, Ryan Poole is shaking his head. But just know we're very excited about some of the things that we have coming up. I didn't tell you what the graduation rate was. I just said I think it's improved. So so that data has been embargoed, but there's a lot of great things happening in Lexington 1. I told our administrators the other day that it's a great day in Lexington 1, and the great part for us is that every day is a great day in Lexington 1. So again, thank you very much, and we're looking forward to a great school year.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Little. We'll look forward to all those things. Item 10.0 are items for board information, and item 11.0, I just need a motion to adjourn. Okay, thank you, Dr. Pitts. And a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, please stand up.